friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video. As you can see, I have brought back the cozy wrap-ups, and I am so excited to be in another pair of pajamas, drinking some chai tea today with, let me turn this around without burning myself, an owl mug this time around. And we're just going to talk over the books that I read in October, my stats, my ratings, all of that fun stuff. It's been so much fun doing these types of wrap-ups. I really enjoyed it last month, so I decided to bring it back for this month. If you guys don't like these, let me know, but from now on, I think I'm going to continue to do them this way. The only reason I'm wearing makeup today is because I'm pre-filming, I'm not pre-filming, but you know what I mean. I am pre-filming technically, but usually I would do it without makeup, but I didn't have the energy to go and take my makeup off. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk over my stats, and then we'll go over the books. Okay, so lots of stats to talk about. I decided to put it on the iPad today because this makes it a little bit easier for me. But in the month of October, I read 15 books. So good. It was such a fantastic reading month. Definitely better than September, for sure. I read a total of 4,954 pages, which is on average about 159 pages a day. And it's an average of about 330 pages per book. Out of the 15 books that I read 8 fantasies, 2 contemporaries, 1 horror, 1 thriller, 2 poetry collections, and 1 romance. It was 9 YA books, 5 adult books, and 1 middle grade. I read 4 of the 15 books physically. I read 10 of the books, audiobook and physical book, and then I read 1 ebook alongside the audiobook. So out of all of the 15 books that I read 11 of them alongside of an audiobook. I'm a huge audiobook listener, and so that really helps me get through my TBR. And all of the books that I read were owned from my own TBR. I didn't borrow any books for this month. As for my star ratings, I gave 1 2-star, 4 3 stars, 7 4 stars, and 3 5 stars. Out of the 15 books that I read, 6 books were written by people of color, and 7 of the books were written about people of color. I read 5 books with queer rep, 2 books with illness rep, and 1 book with mental illness rep. 12 of the 15 books that I read were written by women, and 3 of them were written by men. And then as for the yearly breakdown, this is a new stat for me, so if you guys like this, let me know. I read 8 books from 2020, 2 books from 2019, 3 books from 2018, 1 book from 2016, 1 book from 2014, and 1 book from 2012. That is all of my stats. This chai tea is delicious. I just picked it up yesterday. If you guys saw my vlog, I talked about it, but it is so good, so tasty. So glad to be drinking this. Okay, let's talk about the very first book that I read in the month of October. This was technically on my September TBR, and I didn't finish it by the time October rolled around, so I just ended up rolling it over until the 3rd of October, I think is when I finished it, and that is Mermaid Moon. This was my book club pick for the month of September, and needless to say, I didn't enjoy it. I ended up giving this book a 2-star. It is my only 2-star of the month, and unfortunately, I really didn't like this. I felt as if the story was really underdeveloped. The characters didn't really go anywhere or do anything. I was 200 pages into the book and nothing had really happened. I liked the writing style. I think that it was very flowery and lyrical, or the word that I created videos ago, flowerical. I'm gonna start using that now. Flowerical. I did like that aspect of the book, but other than that, it just didn't really make a lot of sense. It was very predictable. This is a Little Mermaid retelling. It's really kind of hard to explain the plot though, because it's very loosely based on Little Mermaid, and I don't know, I just didn't think that overall it was a well put together book, and I really wish that I felt differently, because this book is stunning and gorgeous. I'm really disappointed that I didn't like it, but can't live them all. All right, another book that rolled over into the month of October, and that is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nyen. I gave this book a 4-star. I ended up really enjoying this. This book took me a very, very long time to read, but the outcome was so much fun. I think the reason that this took me so long was because I was in a reading slump, and not really due to the fact that I didn't enjoy the story. This follows a girl named Lee, who basically gets taken from her home in the village that she lives in to become a paper girl. Basically, paper girls serve the kings. They are there to serve him with their body in, you know, those kind of ways, and it's a very interesting idea for sure. But basically, Lee doesn't want this life. She grew up with a lot of freedom in the village that she lived in, and going to this new place in this new town where she has no freedom and no choice over who she wants to become, no choice over what she can do with her body, she really starts to rebel. And this is a queer book. She falls in love with another one of the paper girls here in the story, and it was just so much fun to watch their story develop, their relationship come into fruition, and just seeing the absolute strength that this main character was just so much fun and interesting to watch as a character arc. It was just phenomenal. There are some really, really amazing quotes in here. One of my favorites is, I don't want a easy life, I want a significant one. Another one is fire in, fear out. And just such really, really awesome quotes. I definitely recommend this if you are looking for a good Asian-inspired fantasy to read. So, so amazing. Okay, the next book that I read was my only ebook of the month, and that was Isla and the Happily Ever After. Isla, right? Yeah. Isla and the Happily Ever After. This is by Stephanie Perkins. This is part of the Anna and the French Kiss series. Wow, I'm really blanking today. And I gave this a 3-star. It was okay. I liked the romance, and I was rooting for them towards the end. It just wasn't my favorite contemporary YA romance that I've ever read. I feel like it didn't really have a ton of depth to it. I don't feel like every single book that you read has to be super in-depth, and, you know, you don't have to get a lesson out of it, but I definitely know that I have read better ones, so it didn't really deserve anything higher than a 3-star. It was a fun time. It was a quick read. I listened to the audiobook alongside reading with the ebook, and it was a very quick thing to fly through. I think I read it in 2 days. Overall, I really enjoyed it. It was kind of like middle of the road, mediocre. Nothing bad to say about it though. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, up next we have The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Audier. This is the second book in the Wrath and the Dawn series, and I really loved this. It was a completion of the duology, and I enjoyed it so much. I gave this a 4-star. It was just so much fun to read and see this particular relationship come to fruition. This follows a girl named Shazi who becomes the brand new queen of the lands that she lives in. However, in the first book, I'm only going to tell you the synopsis of the first book. In the first book, you find out that the queens in this world don't last very long. In fact, they only last until the very next sunrise after they have become queen. And nobody really knows why the king kills his queen every single time he marries a new one. And Shazi is there to not only become queen, but to enact revenge and kill the king to avenge some of the people in her life that have been hurt by the king's actions. And basically, she ends up creating a relationship with him, and things aren't as easy as they seem. And it was just a fun story to read about. I will definitely say that the first book is slow, but you are learning about the characters, you're falling in love with their relationship as they're falling in love with their relationship, and it's very like, just very like, you know, like when, I don't know how to explain it. It was easy to read, it was fun to read, I had a lot of fun with it. However, this one, even though it did have more plot and more going for it, there were times when the story was a little bit slow, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. I really, really recommend the series if you're looking for a good duology that just has some angst and some romance and some action. I think that it was a fantastic book. It definitely broke my heart towards the end of the second book, and, you know, I'll definitely have to do a reread because I'm not over it. Alright, up next we have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I gave this book a 4-star. I really, really enjoyed it. It was my first Riley Sager book that I have read, and he did not disappoint, I will say that. However, okay, I will say he did disappoint a little bit because I was expecting to be terrified while reading this book, and I didn't get scared one time. And I'm really disappointed by that because I wanted all of the Halloween, creepy, haunted house vibes from this book. And yes, you do get the ambiance and the atmosphere of a haunted house, but it just wasn't overly scary. I've heard talk about this book, talks about a scene that has to do with lights, and it was so terrifying and so scary, and I don't know what they're talking about. Like, honestly, there's nothing that clicks for me. So this follows it's a dual timeline story. So this follows a girl, man, I forgot her name. What's her name? Maggie. And her father has passed away, and she's inherited this house that has been in their family for 25 years. And she goes back because she wants to know the truth. basically, the story is that their parents lived in this house for just over 20 days and fled in the middle of the night, never to return. And her dad ended up writing a book about it. And Maggie doesn't believe that anything that was in the book was real. She thinks it was all a lie, and she wants to know the truth. So she heads back to this house even after she's had multiple warnings from her parents never to return. And she goes back to figure out what really happened and why they fled that night. So it was a really interesting story. I liked the twists. I liked the reveal at the end. I think that the story itself was really fun, really fast-paced, really awesome to read about. I love the fact that it included the dad's book in here as you were reading through. So every other chapter, it was pages from the dad's book, and it was just so immersive, so much fun. Awesome audiobook. Definitely recommend the audiobook of this if that's the way you want to read it. It was a lot of fun. Definitely will pick up another Riley Sager book in the future. I loved it. And I think that is going to be the only thriller that I am going to keep and reread. So it must have done something right. Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. Oh, Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. Can you guess? Can you guess? I gave it a 5-star. I loved this book so much. I will definitely say that I loved Get a Life, Chloe Brown more, but the second book is fantastic. I loved Danny Brown. She is so snarky and witty, and she has just so many just like passive-aggressive comebacks towards the main characters, and it was just so much fun. So basically, this follows Danny and Saphir. They are co-workers and friends, and during a fire drill that happens at the school that they work at, Danny gets stuck in an elevator, and Saphir, who may or may not have a huge crush on Danny, runs to her rescue and ends up carrying her out of the building, and the students on campus catch it on video. The video goes viral, and this really helps Saphir in his charity that he is trying to run, and so they end up fake dating. And it's a friends to lovers fake dating story. It's so great. The only thing is Danny is totally opposed to relationships. She doesn't believe in them. She doesn't want one. And Saphir is a hopeless romantic that reads romance novels and does the whole 9 yards. So they're very different. They want different things, and it's just their story about trying to meet each other's expectations without pushing each other too much with things that they want. And it was a fantastic book. In the beginning of this book, very first page, Talia Hibbert gives you trigger warnings for death of a family member, as well as talk about severe anxiety and depression, and it was handled really well in this story. I love the fact that she starts off her books with that information so that you know going forward. It was fantastic. Definitely recommend it if you are looking for a wonderful adult romance. It's definitely smutty, but it was so much fun to read, and I cannot wait for the third book in the series. You best believe I'll be pre-ordering that, getting my little mittens on it, and reading the moment it comes out. Okay, let's talk about a bit more of a disappointing read, and that is A Phoenix First Must Burn by Patrice Caldwell. This is actually an anthology written by, I think it's 16 or 15, yeah, 16 authors. And it's all about black girl magic, sci-fi fantasy stories about black girl magic. And I had this on my 5-star prediction list. Needless to say, it was not a 5-star. I ended up giving this a 3-star. It wasn't terrible by any means. It just wasn't a 5-star, and it was really disappointing because I was expecting so many wonderful things coming out of this book. And it wasn't that I didn't love it. I just don't think that short stories are for me. I am the type of person that doesn't really care for the start of a story. I love that the start of a story can grip you. I love that about it, but it makes it really hard when you're listening to 16 different stories with 16 different magic systems. 16 different plots and premises and characters, and it's really hard to get attached to a character. And then once you do, the story's over, and it's like, okay, well, now what am I reading? What's new? It just, I just couldn't connect. And I think that's where it fell flat for me. I just wish that I connected more with the story. However, there were a couple of stories in here that I did enjoy. I really enjoyed Elizabeth Acevedo's story. I enjoyed Evie Zaboy's story. I enjoyed Patrice Caldwell's story. There were some good stories in here. It just wasn't my favorite. The writing in some of these were really good. Some of them not so great, but overall it was a good anthology. I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for more anthologies about black girl magic. Great for that, just wasn't my favorite. Okay, up next we have a graphic novel, and that is Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan, and I really enjoyed this. This is a very interesting graphic novel. I will show you like the very beginning pages. I really liked the art style. That's the reason why I wanted to show you. It's just very detailed, very much so much, you can just tell so much work and detail went into making this graphic novel what it was, and that was really awesome to like visually see. The storyline is really interesting. It's kind of hard to understand. It's about these two characters who are basically on two species that are in a war with each other, and they end up getting married, creating a relationship, and having a baby. On the very first page, she is in labor, and they are now on the run with their little girl, and it's basically told in the perspective of like a now, and then like the narrator is the little girl. And so it was really interesting to read. It's definitely an adult graphic novel. I was flipping through some of the pages and I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that. But it was awesome. There's a lot of representation in this book. You see some very graphic queer relationships going on in here, and obviously we have a colored main character, so it was really awesome. I really enjoyed the book the graphic novel as a whole. Definitely will continue on with the series. It was a lot of fun. The ending had me intrigued, and I cannot wait to pick up the second volume. All right, up next we have a poetry collection, and that is Nightmares and Daydreams by Braden Eugene. This is one of my good friends and fellow booktubers. He published his own poetry collection in the month of October, and this is it. I did read it, and I gave it a 4-star. Poetry collections are a little bit hard for me to rate because everybody reads poetry differently. I gave it the high rating of a 4-star based on what the intention was and what the themes of the poems were about. Nightmares and Daydreams is very adequately named. Most of the poems in here are very dark, very ominous, very graphic, but I liked the idea behind it. It felt very depressive, and I think that I can't say what he was going for when he wrote this, but I feel like a lot of the emotions that he experienced were put into a very visual and dark theme. There are some poems in here about his father that I really enjoyed. His father passed away, and so they were very sad, and I can't really say I enjoyed them, but they were really good. They were very touching. They were very heartfelt, and they really hit me in the feels. I think that's the reason why I rated this so high, because this isn't my personal type of poetry to read. It was very simplistic. I'm more of the poetry I like to read is very flowery, very lyrical, very metaphorical, and this was much more straightforward and a little bit more juvenile than what I'm used to. However, I really liked the themes in it. The poems that were written about his dad, his mom also wrote a poem in here about his dad, and those ones made me tear up. It was just very real and honest, and I like that. So I definitely enjoyed it. If you're looking for a poetry collection, I would recommend. All right, up next is another book that I was disappointed by, unfortunately, and that is Horrid by Katrina Leno. This was another 3-star book. I will say it was a very low 3-star. I will say I think I rated this a little bit generously, but overall I'm happy with my rating for now. This follows I forgot her name. Jane North Robinson, who her father has passed away, and they are moving from their house in LA to a very creepy house that has been on her mother's side of the family for years. And I forgot what I was saying. Anyways, they moved to this house in Maine, and things just start happening in the house that are very strange and unusual, and Jane is trying to figure out what's going on. It seems like her mother Ruth has been keeping secrets since the moment they got into Maine, and she just doesn't understand what's happening, and she is determined to get to the bottom of this storage room that is in their house, that she has looked underneath the crack of the door to see that there is a kid's bed in there and a playhouse, and it seems a little bit ominous and mysterious, but Jane's mother will give no more information on what it is, and so she goes on a hunt to figure it out. It's another haunted house story, but it wasn't good. The ending of this book, I still don't understand. I didn't like it. It was not great. The writing was okay, but it just wasn't my favorite. There's one particular thing that happened in this book that I'm still bothered by to this day, and I had somebody else comment because I mentioned it in my vlog, and they said that they also noticed it, and it was very small. If you want to know more about that, go check my vlog out. It's just really stupid, but it's like the little things in a book that really bother me and will really hinder my experience while reading it, and that little thing kept coming up in my mind every time I pick up the book, and it just wasn't good. I wish that I liked it more. I feel like the characters had no character arc. They didn't start with one place and ended in the other. They were pretty stagnant the entire way through. The side characters weren't really needed or necessary. You can completely write them out of the story and it wouldn't have made a difference. You would think that her mother would play a bigger role in this story, seeing as she is the one that holds all the secrets, but I just also felt like the main character's mom, Ruth, didn't really have a character arc either. She wasn't really mentioned at all at the end of the story, so you really have no idea what happens. There's no answers, and it just felt very underwhelming. So needless to say, I don't think I will be keeping this on my shelves. It just wasn't great. Okay, up next we have another poetry collection, and that is Poems for the End of the World. Poems for the End of the World. I want to make sure I said that right. And this is by Katie Wimser. I have talked about Katie Wimser on my channel so many times. I think I'm a fangirl or something. But I really enjoy her work. She is a booktuber, self-published author, fantastic writer, and this is her second poetry collection that she published in October of this year, so this month, and I loved it. I gave it a 5-star. It was fantastic. Her topics on her poetry collection are very dark. I wouldn't say dark. They're very raw. They're very open. They're very real. They're very relatable. She talks a lot about her life and an abusive relationship that she was in, and her mental state, her depression, the things that you go through as a human being, just in general. She also talks about just in very small details about her life online and what it's like to be a creator and an influencer and not having people know the real you because you only see what they allow you to see. And I think that was very impactful. There were so many wonderful, wonderful poems in here. I could literally flip to any page and it would be powerful. I'm just gonna open one up and just read this to you. Being in my 20s feels like stumbling through life, wearing the wrong size shoes, always showing up to events under or overdressed, mistaking lipstick for eyeshadow and not being able to take it off, reaching the summit of a 14er, utterly exhausted and spent, dripping sweat down my nose, muscles quivering, begging for rest, and realizing that was just one of the many climbs to come. Like, poems like that, it's like, damn girl, you did the damn thing. So I'm so happy that I read this. I have now fingerprints all over this. So happy that I read this. I'm so excited to see what else Katie comes out with. I know she has a new book coming out next year, and best believe I'll be pre-ordering that, getting my little mittens on that because I am so excited for her. Alright, I had some really good reads and then some really, disappointing reads. So, the last of my disappointing reads, unfortunately, is Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany D. Jackson. This follows a sister and 2 friends of a guy that was shot and killed in their neighborhood in the 90s. And the character that got shot, his name was Steph. He was a rapper. He was really good at what he did, and his sister and his friends really wanted to make sure that his legacy lives on and that people knew who he was. And so they started publishing and putting his music out into the streets and trying to get him a record deal just to make sure that his legacy lived on. That ended up creating a lot of problems for them because obviously Steph is not around, and so they're trying to figure out a way to make this work without incriminating themselves, getting themselves in trouble. And it was a really interesting book. I think that the concept of this book was amazing and the idea behind it was really good. I just think it felt a little bit flat for me. I felt like the author was doing a little bit too much and was juggling too many ideas in one book, and nothing seemed to be fleshed out enough. I felt like there was also an unnecessary romance in here. I'm a sucker for romance, but I feel like if it's in this book, it just wasn't necessary. It just wasn't necessary. I felt like if they really focused more on the idea of who and what Steph was as a rapper, I think that it would have been a little bit more impactful for me. This was told in multiple perspectives, 3 different perspectives, as well as a couple of chapters from Steph's perspective. And it was just a little bit overwhelming, and it was a lot, and it wasn't really a chance, they didn't give me a chance to connect with the characters like I wanted to. I think it's a really good story. I think that it talks a lot about some really awesome topics, especially race, gang violence, gang reciprocation. It's a fantastic book for those things. I just think that the execution on some of the things that were supposed to be the core values of this book were a little bit underwhelming. So I gave it a 3-star. Definitely would recommend it if you're interested in it, but just wasn't my favorite thing. Okay, let's talk about the last 3 books of the month. They were all fantastic. So let's talk about Wundersmith by Jessica Townsend, the second book in the Trials of Morgan Crow series. I loved it. I gave it a 5-star. It was fantastic. It was amazing. I loved it so much. So happy that I read this. Like, literally so happy that I read this. I have the 3rd book already here in my possession on my TBR for the month of November, and I'm so excited. I have explained this, I feel like, in the last 3 videos that I filmed, and I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again. But if you don't know what this is about, this follows a girl named Morgan Crow, who is a cursed child, and she is destined to die on the eve of her 11th birthday. And on her 11th birthday, there's a thing called bidding day, and she ends up getting bid on by a guy named Jupiter North, and he whisks her away to this wonderful, fantastical place called Nevermore, where she is put in the trials to become a part of the Wonder Society. However, everyone in the Wonder Society has a knack, but Morgan doesn't know what hers is. And so it's just about her trying to figure out what her knack is and learning this new world that she never knew existed. And it's so whimsical and magical and fantastical and so many of the O's. I loved it so much. If you guys haven't read this series, please pick it up. It's amazing. The characters are wonderful. The atmosphere in this book is just amazing. Like, this book had the ability to depress me and make me happy, all in the same vein, and it was just, it's great. Love it, love it, love it. Definitely recommend. And then I read and finished my book club pick for the month of October, and that was Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis. I really enjoyed this. This follows a couple of different magicians. It follows Jack, who is basically the master. That's what they call him in the synopsis. Then you have Kalia, who is a woman magician who is really trying to make a name for herself out in the world. But this is a time period where women magicians just really, this isn't the space for them. And so this is her story of her trying to enter into this competition, this magical competition. And then you also have Judge DeMarco, who is it's just amazing. He's amazing. He is a magician who has a little bit of a past, and this past is catching up with him, and all of the stories combined in this really magical, interesting way that has so much intrigue and curiosity behind it. And I just had questions till the very end. I still have questions. I cannot wait to read the second book. If you guys follow Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte, she has compared this book to The Greatest Showman, and I would definitely 100% agree. This gives me Zac Efron and Zendaya vibes all the way, and 100% recommend this if you're looking for a good, fantastical, magical book. It was amazing. Okay, and last but not least, I just finished this yesterday, and that is Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I finally finished the Folk of the Air series, and I really enjoyed the final book. I gave this a 4-star. I think that the book concluded in a really awesome and fulfilling way. I know that some people didn't really care for the ending of this book, but I really enjoyed it. Did I think it was happily ever after-esque? Did I think it was very predictable? Yeah. But was I happy with the outcome? Absolutely. I think what Holly Black does best is she really amps up the story until you're at the last 4 or 5 chapters and you're like hanging on to every word on the edge of your seat, just waiting to hear what's gonna happen next. And I enjoyed it all the way through. I will say that I didn't enjoy this book as much as the second book in the series. I gave that one a 5-star, but I liked it more than the first book in the series. So they're both at 4 stars, but I feel like this one sits a little bit higher than the first book in the series. And that's just because I wanted more romance. I wanted a little bit more of everything in the first book that I ended up getting in the second and third books, which I really enjoyed. Overall, it's a fantastic series. I know this series isn't for everybody, but it definitely was for me, and I'm so glad that I finished it. These books are heavy. Okay. These, oh my god, I can't even get them all in frame. These are all the books that I read in the month of October. I am very happy with this outcome. It was a month. It was a crazy month for sure. A lot of unexpected things happened this month that I couldn't have predicted even if I tried, but everything worked out the way that it was supposed to. I absolutely adored most of the books that I read this month, and I'm so glad that I was able to finish them. I would love to know what you guys read in the month of October and what were your favorite books that you read this month. Please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear you guys' feedback. Please let me know if you guys like these types of wrap-ups, these very chill, relaxed type of wrap-ups. I have a lot of fun filming them, so I really hope that you guys enjoy them. But with all that to say, that is the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.